Hello, everyone. Dr. Victoria Scarbo here, speaking to you from the Seeds of Transformation Healing Center in Wareham, Massachusetts. I was sitting here looking at the upcoming lunar eclipse that's going to be happening on May 16th, and I thought maybe we could take a look at that and look at it in the chart of the United States, the Ukraine, and Russia. And if we have time, the leaders of those countries, just to see what the energy is at this time, because we know that this is going to be a very powerful eclipse um, and powerfully placed, especially in the chart of Putin and um, and the like. So I think that it would be a good thing to look at. So let's just look at the chart itself of the eclipse. So we have a total lunar eclipse, and this is for Washington D.C. It's occurring on the 16th of May at looks like 13:57 a.m. So just after midnight. And we can see, we know that it's midnight because the sun is down here in the fourth house. That's how you know it's midnight. This chart is for the Washington D.C. So this is sort of the eclipse chart as it's seen in Washington. And we have the north node and the south node, of course, part of the eclipse. The sun on the north node, the moon on the south node. This is the axis, and the Taurus Scorpio axis is an axis of values. What's important to us? What values do we have? What values do we share? But in the house structure, we're looking at the 10th house and the fourth house, and as a pair, as a polarity, we're dealing with the axis of security, both emotional security, fourth house, and physical actual security in the outer world, 10th house. And so there's this real the energy is very much about taking possession, as it just sits in the chart for the United States, taking possession of that which you value, what is most important to you, North Node in Taurus, while letting go of South Node in Scorpio with that moon there, letting go of the past, grieving of the past, feeling the emotions coming up from the past. And and the themes here are generally those of being an authority in your own life, maybe moving away from looking at what those in charge say, and really sort of going deep within your own sense of values, like really a sense of bottom line here, right? What do we need? What do we want? Who are we? That kind of stuff. We do have Pluto in the first house of this chart. So there is this energy of transformation of how we define ourselves to a certain extent. We do have the Pisces energy, very, very much connected with this, and even the Aries energy to a certain extent, although it is wide. I mean, the Jupiter energy in Aries, taking into consideration that Jupiter is in Aries, right? This is like a new cycle, the Jupiter in Aries, new cycle of expansion starting. But this Mars Neptune almost exact conjunction is trying the south node and the moon, and is sextile the north node and the sun. And so this cycle right here, this Mars Neptune cycle, has some significance connected to what is being released in this cycle, and what we're moving towards in the cycle. And that Mars Neptune cycle actually began in 2020. In 2020. In fact, I didn't put that chart up. So let me see if I can pull that chart up just to get a sense of that. Hold on one moment here. So this is the chart of the Neptune Mars conjunction I was talking about. And that occurred on June 13th of 2020. Interestingly enough, a day before Donald Trump's birthday in 2020. But let's take a look at them, and I'll just put these two charts next to each other so you can see what I'm trying to convey here. All right. All right, we have this and this one. Is this what we want? Yes. Okay, hold on 1 second. Okay, that's not what I wanted. Let's look at it here. Here we go. Sorry about that, folks. Here's the eclipse, and here's the event. Okay, here we go. So this is the eclipse we're looking at. Remember, I said that Mars and Neptune are almost conjunct. They're almost finishing a synodic cycle as they approach, as we have this eclipse. And this is the actual synodic cycle I was speaking of right here. It was when they conjoined at 21 degrees of Pisces. So there's a sense of something maybe coming to fruition that will occur at this time in this chart. Okay, so let's take a look at how this chart lines up on the chart of the US. So let's do that first. Let's start at home. And actually, I don't have to do this. Hold on 1 minute here. I actually have this chart. Let me find it. Okay. Oh, goodness gracious. So sorry, guys. I'm like, oh, that's the wrong one. Here we go. All right, let's look at this one right here. All right, what do we have here? I believe this is the chart. Okay, so here's the lunar eclipse. Okay, the lunar eclipse is on the outer rim, and this is the chart of the US, the chart of the US. So there are a couple of things. Now remember, with this full moon, it's an expression of feelings from the past. So there can be a lot of anguish coming out at this time for whatever reason, right? And if we look at it, if we look at the eclipse is happening along the axis of the 6th house and the 12th house in the Sibley chart, with the North Node and the Sun being in the 6th house. The 6th house is service, it's responsive, it's the military actually here. So this seems to be like there's resources coming to that. We have the South Node in the 12th house and the moon in the 12th house. These are the houses of healing. This is the axis. This is showing us where we need healing. And we need healing in both our healthcare system, and our military system, and how we tend to, I believe, this realization how much debt we're in because of all these military misadventures that we go in, to the point where the people aren't being taken care of, nor are the people who go to, out into these wars get taken care of when they come back. So there's a lot of pain and anguish and resentment, I think, coming from soldiers, even veterans, and people just, like, why are we so concerned to a certain extent with these things that are happening far away when we can't really even take care of our own? So there's that sensibility, I think, that could come out with this eclipse. Now, if we look at this eclipse from the view of Russia, now this is the Russian Federation chart. We have December 25th, 1991, 5:19:40, I guess, p.m. I don't, well, that's interesting. Anyway, this is the Russian chart right here. It has a Leo ascendant, Sun in Capricorn in that sixth house. This eclipse is hitting Pluto and Venus of the chart of the of the Russian Federation. I feel as though this can be a draining of money or an increase in indebtedness. But I also think with the South Node going over the Pluto here is that the resentment coming out is a resentment that perhaps was there from the very beginning. This sense of this Pluto Venus in Scorpio conjunction in the fifth house. This is propaganda, and perhaps propaganda will be seen for what it is. Perhaps it'll be seen for what it is. We also have Pluto sitting on Black Moon Lilith here. Black Moon Lilith is where we tend to go to extremes, and with Black Moon Lilith in Capricorn, it's very possible that the extreme is, you know, this extreme control, right? This sort of control that that is put on the people of Russia, how they're manipulated, and you know, every country does it. It's not just Russia. I mean, our country does it too. We just are freer. We have more of a free press, sort of, and you know, they all do it, but to what extent and to what delusional sense do they do it to, right? And then if we look at this chart and the Ukraine, we can see here with Saturn on the moon. Of course, the Saturn on the moon doesn't really have all that much to do. Well, it actually does have a lot to do with this eclipse, because Saturn is square the nose here. Saturn is square the eclipse from both ends. So this is a point of what we have to, of reality, right? Saturn is reality, and Saturn sitting on the moon of the Ukraine. It's actually moving away from the moon right now. When it was exactly on the moon, that was when they uncovered what happened in Bucha. That's when we started seeing images of what happened in Bucha, and we could really see in you know, before that we weren't really sure, but when you get on the ground and you see the reality of the situation, we saw what really happened there. The interesting thing about Saturn and Aquarius here is that this is the US chart again. We have Saturn approaching a conjunction to the moon of the US in this chart anyway, in the Sibley chart. So this is a restriction of the people. We're going to feel squeezed. And in the case of the Ukraine, they're getting squeezed by Putin. We're getting squeezed by you know, this sense that we don't have as much as we need to have, or things are getting more expensive, or we have to tighten our belts, or you know, that kind of stuff, the inflation stuff, you know. And then of course all the struggles people are having after COVID, long COVID, how many people have died from it, how many families are mourning that and died alone. I mean, there's just so much sorrow out there, and this is like this eclipse, I think, is going to be an opportunity. There's going to be a great release of energy with this eclipse, and I think a lot of that is going to be anguish. I feel like there's a lot of anguish, but it's necessary for us to see it for what it is and connect it for where it comes from if we can, because we can't always. This stuff is pretty deep. When you're dealing with Scorpio, you don't always know where the feels are coming from, but you know you're feeling them, right? So there's this depth. There's this depth of release here that that sort of needs to happen with this, or that will happen, whether, and we'll feel it because the moon is there. We'll feel it because the moon is there. But we see that that Saturn is sitting right on that moon for the Ukrainians. Saturn is a repressive, oppressive force, and especially the moon in the first house. The first house is the physical body, so it's like a physical assault to a certain extent here. The south node is close to the Pluto of the Ukraine, but not exact. So it's moving towards that. Actually, in the chart for Russia, the south node is actually on their Pluto. So it's as if this feeling is well tied up more with Pluto of the USSR here. Okay. I don't know if I'm being clear. So let's keep going. So let's take a look at the leaders of these countries. Now, here's Vladimir Putin. This is his chart. This is the eclipse. This eclipse he's in the crosshairs of this eclipse. This is a very powerful eclipse for him. He's at a crossroads in his life. We have his Pluto here at 2243 up in that 10th house, of course. The Tsar conjunct his south node up here. This is his past life as Tsar or religious leader, somebody who's used to being in power, ultimate, complete and utter power, not just, this is the monarch, right? This is the Tsar, life and death, right? And then but that's his south node, right? He's got his north node in Aquarius. His soul wants to move in the direction of humanitarianism. However, he does have Jupiter square his node. So he has this skip step with Jupiter. Jupiter and Taurus in that 7th house. Jupiter is expansion, Taurus is money. This can be extraordinary greed. As a square, when Jupiter squares the nodes, very often you can't trust what the person says. There's issues around truth and lies. The resolution node for him, in order for him to evolve as a soul, is that north node. It's not about the past. He needs to get over this, what he believes to be true. This is his delusion. He needs to look at life the way it is to a certain extent. And Saturn has been on that north node now for a while. In fact, it was going right over that north node when he started the war in the Ukraine. So he's gotten reality. He's gotten a view of reality. He thought he could do it, but he couldn't because he's delusional. He didn't think it out. He just, he gutted it out maybe, right? So we have this. We also have the north node squaring his Pluto and squaring his nodes. So when that happens, when the nodes square the nodes, it creates a grand cross. And this is a grand fixed cross, which is deep, deep emotional issues that usually, in order to work through them, things break with this. So there's explosions, so this outpouring into a certain extent of Putin on the Ukraine, which, what did they do really? Why is he picking on the Ukraine? Well, of course there's reasons, right? But just a question that can be answered, but that's not why I'm asking it, right? It's almost like he's having like a breakdown, and he's taking it out on his neighbor. So this is a very important time for him, and he's under an awful lot of stress here, which I'm not going to say I don't think he deserves. Um, but this is a very tenuous time for him. This is not really all that good. We have Neptune and Mars here in conjuncting that Pluto. You know, that's not great. We have Mars, square Mars here. Crisis. He's moving into a crisis in action, but he has Neptune, transiting Neptune, squaring his Mars. He's not thinking clearly. He's not acting clearly. He's not acting on the kind of the facts on the ground to a certain extent. So this is very, very powerful for him. If we look at it on Joe Biden's chart, also very powerful on Biden's chart, because the South Node is right on Joe Biden's Mercury, right on his Mercury here. Mercury rules Biden's house of open enemies and partners, right? Partners, friends, partnership. And it also rules his, where's his Virgo house? His 10th house. So this South Node on his Mercury, and of course the moon here right on his sun and his Venus and his Mercury. I mean, he's got a lot of, this is very, very tight. At the same time, he has Uranus opposite his Mars. Again, this is somebody else who's under an awful lot of stress. So it's a challenging, difficult, and dangerous time for both these leaders. And, you know, in part, it could be health related with both these leaders, but it could also be, you know, this is some sort of like karmic showdown in a way that these two people with all this 12th house stuff. I mean, here's Biden's 12th house, right? Oops, not Biden, not Putin. Biden. Nope, sorry. Everybody. Putin. Here we go. Putin's 12th house. You know, and then let's take a look at is this it? Vladimir Zelensky. Now he's under a lot of pressure in his chart with everything that's going on, of course. He does have let's see what's going on in Zelensky's chart. He's been under a lot of pressure. There's challenging things happening to his chart. But in this eclipse, unlike for Biden and Putin, this eclipse isn't, I don't think, hitting him as hard as it could be. I think there's a moment. I think the most challenging parts for him are actually behind him, although he's not out of danger. But I don't see this eclipse affecting him as evidently as it's affecting Biden and Putin. But of course, it is affecting his country, right? It's affecting Zelensky's country. So I don't know. I hope that this gave you some insight. I don't just kind of wanted to sit here and share those things with you. Hopefully it was helpful. And I'd like to do a card reading on the eclipse. But I think what I'll do is I'll do that in a separate video so that this isn't too long for you. All right, well, just a couple of observations that I had, I thought I would share with you. Hopefully it's helpful. All right, guys, have yourself a wonderful evening. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you again shortly for card reading on the eclipse. Okay, guys, take care. Namaste.